The local police union says it wants more protection for JSO officers. The Fraternal Order of Police wants officers to be included in Marsy's law, which basically would make their names and other information private if they're victims of a crime. Now, this could even apply to shootings involving police officers. The FOP filed a lawsuit against JSO, arguing the officers should be given the same rights as everyone else in Florida under the new law. And that law is a state constitutional amendment that basically keeps names, addresses, and other personal information off public records like police reports. It went into effect, by the way, last year. So Police Union President Steve Zona joins us this morning. Steve, thanks for being here. Do appreciate it. Can you explain your position more clearly then for our viewers who are not familiar with this law? So
when Marsy's law went into effect, and Marsy's law says that every victim will be afforded certain rights under the Florida Constitution. We feel those rights should apply to police officers too, whether in uniform or not. And the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office released training saying, teaching our officers how to apply Marsy's law. And in one of the slides it said that you will not be afforded these rights if it's in the course of your duty, if you're a victim in the official course of your duty. So I started a discussion with the undersheriff to try to work that out, and we just have a professional disagreement. They don't think it should apply to us while we're working, and we do.
What is the risk to your officers by having that information then released to the public?
Sure, it's the same. Our risk is the same as any other victim here in Jacksonville or in the state of Florida. Marsy's law specifically says it's not just us, and that's people need to focus on the entire law and what it says. It's us and our families. Marsy's law says we have the right and our families have the right to prevent the release of information that could locate us and harass us. And we have a right and our families have a right to be considered when bond is set or when pretrial release is set. And we can go on and on. So it's not, people say wrongly, we think, well, you signed up to be a police officer. You knew those risks going in. But this is our families too. And obviously, when the constitutional amendment was passed, they took that into consideration. That's why the word families is in there.
So, and to be clear then, what you're saying is, as an example, and correct me if I'm wrong,
sure.
If a police officer, for example, gets into some type of confrontation with a suspect, and that suspect advances or attacks the police officer, that would then make that police officer technically a victim, and as a result, the police officer's information, name, would not be released to the public. Is that correct?
Well, you're correct up until the point where you say it would not be released to the public. Okay. The police officer, like any other victim here in Jacksonville, would have to ask for that protection. So some of our police officers might not. They might feel comfortable letting their information be released to the public. And that's just it. That's what we're trying to say is give us the option like you give every other person here in the city of Jacksonville that's a victim of a crime.
But that said then, and I know, and having covered the police beat for many, many years, very oftentimes, there is a review process. So let's take police shootings as an example. Sure. Don't you believe based on transparency, that the public and the news media and everyone should be able to know more about that police officer and their background and their prior, perhaps, incidents involving, let's say, police shootings? If that were to occur, and as a result, if they're included under this law, the public would not know anything about that police officer's prior history.
Sure. We're aware of the concerns of the public, and we understand their concerns. But I go back to, you have to weigh the individual rights of a victim over the rights of releasing their information to the public. Where does it say in the Florida Constitution? It says every victim. Where does it say in the Florida Constitution that every victim except for a police officer in uniform while he's working? Can you imagine if we just started handpicking other professions here in Jacksonville and not releasing their information releasing their information to the public when they're afforded those protections? It's a travesty to the criminal justice system. This is why that law went into effect.
And just very quickly, Steve, then, the reality is that, we've seen, the crime rate is very alarming at this point. There is a real push to create more community policing. Are you concerned that this could be considered a transparency issue?
No, I can see people trying to make it a transparency issue, but community policing and being involved in the community as police officers here in Jacksonville is a lot different than us being able to be afforded the same rights as every other victim here in town.
Steve, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And we should point out also that we have reached out to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, namely Sheriff Williams, for the Sheriff's Office response to this lawsuit. We have not heard back. We will update you on air and online as soon as we do.